Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. This is part 3 of our Elements of Handicapping series for the Belmont Stakes, Speed. So let's take a look at the contestants. Part 3 is Speed, the record and evaluation of each contender's speed figures in comparison to the field and the Belmont Stakes pars. Number 1 is Tapit shoes. And just for those of you who haven't done this with us before, we're going to use 3 different speed figures, the Beyer, the Brisnet, and the Thorograph. Beyer is more a measure of the final time of a race. Brisnet incorporates some elements of speed into their number, and Thorograph puts everything together, meaning the trip, the bias, the weather, the wind, velocity, just about everything you can think of is incorporated into that number, and it's all boiled down to give you one solid speed figure. And their system is more of a identifying patterns in how a horse runs as opposed to just a final number. So with Tapit shoes, for the Bathhouse Row, got a 91, and Brisnet a 98, and a Thorograph is a 5.5. Now, the pars for Belmont, you would want to see a horse running somewhere between like 101 and 103 in the Beyer speed figure, probably about a 101 in the Brisnet. And then Thorograph is there's not really par involved. It's just based upon, it's just a measurement of speed. There's no par involved with it. So anyway, Tapit shoes were in a good Bathhouse Row. He's definitely moving in the right direction and advancing, but obviously that number's a cut below what it'll take to win the Belmont Stakes. So then we have to think about progression, and is this horse moving forward? He got a 5.5 on the Thorograph. Something like a 1 maybe would be like a Belmont winning type of number, more often than not, 1 or a 2. Is a move possible? Thorograph, indicates that there's probably a move forward, but it's really not going to be enough to be considered a winning candidate here. Perhaps some kind of a contender, particularly if the pace is slow. I could see this one getting into the exotics. But as far as a win candidate, no, I don't think so. Speed grade, he gets a B because I think even with a move forward, he's probably still a cut below. Tapit Trice, of course, we all remember the Derby and how disappointing it was, particularly for Tapit Trice fans. He got a 94 for that, and a 93 Brisnet, and that's really indicative. The Brisnet number is normally higher. Like I say, for the Derby, a good effort would be like a 101 or 102, something like that. So it really indicated how disappointing a race it was. A Thorograph, he got a 5. The Bluegrass, he had got a 1. Now, I'm not so sure you would qualify this as a bounce per se. Maybe some kind of regression. I have a feeling that it may have just been Churchill Downs. Tapits just don't seem to like it. I've seen so many Tapits in the Derby not do well, including Tapit himself, that you start to wonder that maybe it's they prefer Belmont, but they don't like Churchill Downs. I don't know. But it just seemed like a very strange effort, especially when you consider Todd Pletcher's the trainer and would have this one in peak condition. So it was just a weird race. You could almost draw a line through it. Is he going to move forward? Yes, I think he's moving forward off of that race. He's demonstrated enough ability that I think he's going to. So can he run a race commensurate with a winning one for the Belmont? Yeah, he can. I think we saw that in the Bluegrass. So I think he's a win candidate for sure. He's getting a B+ because that was it's sort of one of those things, like it's not an A, but we know you can do better. So if you try a little harder kind of thing. So he can run to the A level to win this race, and I think he's got it in him to do so. Arcangelo is interesting. He ran a big Peter Pan. I mean, that was a big race with a duel down the stretch of Bishop's Bay. And I remember watching that, thinking afterwards, I wonder if that's going to take a little too much out of him for the Belmont. Because when you see horses run those big efforts like, give you an example, the Bluegrass Stakes with Verifying and Tapit Trice, it seemed to knock them both out going into the Derby because neither of them did well. And that was kind of what I was thinking about. He has been taking quantum leaps. The last 3 races on the Thorograph scale, he's gone from a 10 to a 5 to a 1. Those are big jumps. Generally, when a horse jumps that fast, that high, there's only one place for them to go. And regression is probably likely. And I know a lot of people are high on Arcangelo, and listen, he's got a great pedigree, and he's a good horse. But when you improve that rapidly, sometimes there's something left to be desired. It's better to have that slow, steady progression. So he got a 97 buyer for the Peter Pan. We do have to remember, though, that was around one turn, and Belmont's a different animal. And when you come off such a really intense effort like he had in the Peter Pan, asking him now to go 2 turns at 1.5 miles might be a little much. He gets a B+ for speed because the 97 buyer is pretty close to what would be required to win the Belmont, and it does, hint to, like, if you can build on what you did in the Peter Pan, then maybe you could be a win candidate. I just don't think it's going to happen, and I think he might be able to find his way underneath in the exotics, but from a speed standpoint, I don't think he's a win candidate. National Treasure is coming off, a great Preakness where he wired the field and got a 98 buyer for it. Brisnet, he got 100, and Thoroughgraph, he got a 4. Now, that's his third 4 in a row. And usually when you have that slow, steady, consistent effort, then another move forward is certainly possible. So he's looking good to move forward to have another big race. Now, is it whether or not he can wire the field in the Belmont is a big ask, and we know this. He seems to be primed and ready to do so if necessary. I don't think he's going to have any other challengers on the lead, and he's certainly got the right pilot in Johnny Velasquez, as we saw in the Preakness. So, from a speed standpoint, he is sitting on a move forward, and we have to like him in that regard, and that's why he's getting an A- because it's pretty close. The buyer of 98 is pretty close to being a Belmont par. And, an A- always says there's room for improvement. But I think he can offer that coming up, and I like his chances. Il Miracolo, what can you say? 77 buyers, about 25 points below what it takes to win this race. The Brisnet number is about 12 to 13 points below, and the Thoroughgraph is at 10. And that's just way too slow. And even, he just ran a 1-turn mile at Gulfstream in 1:37 and change, and that's not nearly good enough. So he gets a D for speed because he's just not fast enough. I just heard recently that the owner of Il Miracolo says he likes to gamble. I don't know why he doesn't pick roulette because there's no gamble here. This horse ain't going to win. So that's the bottom line. Number 6 is FOrte. Now, he's an interesting one for sure because we're dealing with a 10-week layoff. And interestingly enough, it's pretty much the same as from the Breeders' Cup to the Fountain of Youth. So you're in that same position again. Obviously, after the Florida Derby, he was ready to take another step forward in the Kentucky Derby. And so those are the numbers we have to base our speed numbers on. You got a 95 for the Florida Derby, 100 for the Brisnet, and he got Thoroughgraph, he got a 3.5, and that was a slight regression from his effort in the Fountain of Youth coming off the layoff. All that said, prior to the Kentucky Derby, these were pretty good numbers in comparison to everybody else. However, obviously now we've had horses who have run in 2 classic races in some cases, and they've had the ability to improve and raise their game. And so now you look at these numbers where before, prior to the Derby, they were looking pretty good. Now they're kind of middling or marginal in a sense, at almost the level of cut below. We do know FOrte's got a lot of class. Can he jack it up to another level? I think he showed in the Florida Derby that he could do that if necessary. This horse has a lot of class. He can run better than a 95. I'm fairly certain he wasn't tuned up all the way for the Florida Derby. The big issue is the 10-week layoff when he had been pointed to the Kentucky Derby, and now it's 5 weeks later. So that's the big issue more than anything else. So speed-wise, prior to the Derby, he was getting an A, but now he's getting a B plus because we have to readjust those numbers expectations-wise in comparison to the other horses who have been running along. So is he still a contender on a speed basis? Absolutely. Can he run a winning effort in this race? Yes, he can. It's a little cloudier than it was for the Derby, but I consider this one to be a win candidate. Number 7 is Hit Show. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. You know, you look at Forte had a 95. Well, prior to the Derby, Hit Show had been like at the 94, I think he got for the Wood Memorial, maybe 93. And we were thinking he was a cut below. And he ran a really nice Derby, and he got a 98. Now, that would, if you had seen that Kentucky Derby and compared it to Forte's Fountain of Youth, you would have thought they were equals. So that's kind of what I'm referring to. But let's talk about Hit Show. He ran a nice Derby. I thought the more I watch that race, the more I like it. He ran a really solid race. Got a 98 buyer for it. A little troubling on the Brisnet scale. Would like to see that up around 100, 102, something like that. So that's a little bit of an issue. And for a Thoroughgraph, he got a nice 3.5. And that's the same as Forte, right? It got the Florida Derby. But that was definitely a move forward. Now, is it possible for him to take a move forward? This is where the rubber meets the road. Not overly certain. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. Could Hit Show make another move forward and be a serious contender to Belmont? It's possible. He could also regress. He could go either way. So I'm kind of on the fence with him. Speed grade-wise, he gets an A- because a 98 buyer is an effort that's commensurate with a Belmont win candidate coming into the race. He has the pedigree and everything else, so that's why he gets an A-. Can he improve on that? That's the big question mark. I think he's more than likely he's going to be a cut below like he always is. So the exotics to me seem more of a realistic ceiling. And I'm just not sold on him as a win candidate. Angel of Empire, what can you say? Fantastic race in the Kentucky Derby. Darn near won the thing. Got a 104 buyer. That's more than commensurate with a winning effort for the Belmont. Brisnet 101, same thing, and he got a 2 on the Thoroughgraph. As we've said all along, this horse has done nothing wrong. He gets better every single start, and the longer the distances, the better he likes it. So he could not be in better position in the Belmont right now. So he gets an A speed-wise. He does not necessarily have to build on that 104 to win this race, but I think he could. This horse is in great form, and he just has every indication that more ground is what he's going to love. So he gets an absolute A, and he's a definite win candidate for me. Now we come to Red Route 1, and it seems like this horse is just the most ubiquitous 3-year-old I've ever seen. He seems like he's in every race. He's had a lot of activity this year, but we really haven't seen an improvement or a breakthrough performance, in my opinion. Now, you take the Bathhouse Row, for instance. I mean, I think he got a 93 or 94 coming from the clouds in that one. The Preakness, they anticipated a slow pace, so they tried to get him up near the lead. Just didn't happen. It's not what this horse wants to do. He's a one-run closer, and that's that. The numbers are reflective of him being out of his comfort zone. He got a 91 buyer. He can do a little better than that. Got a 94 Brisnet number, same. And he got a 6.25 on the Thoroughgraph, which is about where he's been running all along. Now, he's just been running steadily, roughly in the same place, which is a little bit of a cut below. Can he build on this and make a move forward? Yes, it's very possible. He's poised to do so, but how much of an improvement? Is it enough to win this race? I don't think so. Also, when you consider he's going to be coming from the clouds, any horse that's stalking or mid-pack is going to have the jump on him as far as getting to any pace or any leader. Horses who stalk or are on the edge and do very well in the Belmont. Closers, believe it or not, are a little bit up against it. So can he move forward? Yes. Is he a win candidate? Not likely. I think it's more likely that he's in the exotics, kind of like in the Preakness, second, third, or fourth. But that's the extent of it. So if we take our speed evaluation, we line them all up together, you'll see all the way to the right, parenthetically, those are the top five. Angel of Empire being 1, National Treasure 2, Hit Show 3, Arcangelo 4, and FOrte, even with the 10-week layoff, is still in the top 5. So for those of you who are FOrte fans, you should feel pretty good about that. The numbers are across our Buyer, Brisnet, and Thorograph, just to refresh. But you see those pluses and minuses. Well, what that indicates is horses that are likely to move forward. So Tapit Shoes, Tapit Trice, National Treasure, Angel of Empire, and Red Route 1 are in a position where they're likely to move forward. Hit Show is plus or minus, again, because I'm on the fence and it's hard to determine which way he's going to go or if he's just going to plateau. If he plateaus, he's in the race. So it's he's one. It's just kind of hard to gauge. And Arcangelo, of all of them, is really one that I think is poised to regress. The ones that don't have a designation, FOrte and Il Miracolo just isn't good enough, and whatever he does, a move forward's not going to be good enough, and a move backwards, I don't know. I mean, his two winning efforts have been both on the front end. Maybe he'll try to get on the engine early, but there's no way he's going to be there late. FOrte, again, I think he's plateaued. It's a good plateau. It's a competitive plateau. And we know that he can run better than what he did in the Florida Derby. He demonstrated that he had that he has not regressed from 2 years old. It's just others might be catching up to him a little bit. That's really what it is. But I think he's if he runs his race that he's capable of running, that makes him a competitor. So that's what we're looking like for speed. Well, when you look at those numbers, it's kind of hard not to like Angel of Empire, is it? It just seems like he's towering over the field. I don't think he's quite that superior. I mean, I think there's others who are right there at the same level with him. But you look at it from a speed standpoint, and he looks awful hard to beat. We're going to continue with our Elements of Handicapping series. We'll have part 4, Pace, along very shortly, and then we'll wrap it all up with our final assessment as we normally do. Plus, we'll have our Belmont card series. We'll have an all-stakes pick 4 sequence for Friday's card as well as Saturday's, and so you'll have more to look forward to in that regard, so plenty of content available. If you do like what you see here, of course, please like and subscribe, and we do thank you for coming by, and I love to hear from you guys. Thanks so much for the comments. Please keep them coming. Love to hear some different viewpoints. So I'll be talking to you in the very near future, and until then, be well.